The small town of Pinewood was like many others in America during the summer of 1957. Main Street had shops where people bought their food and clothes. Children played in the park near the old oak tree. Everyone knew each other. The town had one school, one church, and one diner where people met to talk. Most people in Pinewood were white. They had lived there for many years. Some families had been there since their grandparents came to America. The town was quiet and slow. Nothing big ever happened there. Until one hot day in July. The Morton family moved into the old house at the end of Elm Street. They came from a city far away. Mr. Morton got a job at the factory outside town. Mrs. Morton stayed home with their son, James. James was 12 years old. He was smart and loved to read books. He also loved to play baseball. James was the first black child to live in Pinewood. On his first day in town, James wanted to meet other kids. His mother told him to be careful. "Not everyone will be nice," she said. But James was full of hope. He put on his best shirt and combed his hair. He smiled as he walked down the street toward the park. At the park, 5 boys were playing baseball. They needed one more player for their team. James watched them from the side. He loved baseball more than anything. He knew all the rules and could hit the ball far. He stood there for 10 minutes, watching and waiting. Then he took a deep breath and walked up to them. He was smiling. "Hi," he said. "Can I play too?" The boys stopped. They looked at James, then at each other. No one spoke for what felt like a long time. Tommy Baker was the oldest boy there. His father owned the biggest store in town. Tommy was always the leader. What he said, the others did. "We don't play with your kind," Tommy said. His voice was cold. James kept smiling, but his eyes showed hurt. "I just want to play baseball," he said. "I'm good at it." "Go home," another boy said. "No one wants you here." James stood there, not moving. He had faced mean kids before. His father told him to stand tall and not show fear. "I can be the catcher," James said. "Your team needs one." Tommy stepped closer to James. He was taller and older. "Are you deaf?" he asked. We said no. The other boys laughed. One of them threw a baseball glove on the ground, at James's feet. James did not pick it up. He did not run away. He just stood there, looking at the boys. His smile was gone now. What happened next would change Pinewood forever. An old man was sitting on a bench nearby. He had watched everything. His name was Mr. Wilson. He had lived in Pinewood all his life. He had fought in a war far away. He had seen good men die. Mr. Wilson stood up slowly. His legs hurt from old age, but he walked over to where the boys stood. He picked up the glove from the ground. "I was watching you boys play," he said. "Not very good, if you ask me." The boys looked at Mr. Wilson with surprise. Everyone in town respected him. "This young man says he can play," Mr. Wilson said, looking at James. "I say we find out." Tommy shook his head. "My dad says we shouldn't mix with them." Mr. Wilson looked Tommy in the eyes. "Your dad isn't here right now, but I am. And I say the boy plays." The air was thick with tension. No one moved. Birds sang in the trees, not knowing how important this moment was for the town of Pinewood. What the boys decided to do next would haunt this American town for years to come. The boys looked at each other. Mr. Wilson waited. James stood there with hope in his eyes. Finally, Tommy spoke. "Fine. One game, but he has to play on the other team." Mr. Wilson nodded. He handed the glove to James, who took it with a small smile. "Thank you, sir," James said to Mr. Wilson. Then he looked at Tommy. "You won't be sorry. I really can play." The boys split into teams. James was with 2 boys named Billy and Sam. They did not look happy to have him. The game began. James was the catcher like he said he would be. When it was his turn to bat, he hit the ball so far that everyone stopped to watch it fly. "Home run," Mr. Wilson called out. He sat back on his bench with a smile. James ran around all the bases. The other boys watched with surprise. No one said anything, but they all saw that James was the best player there. They played for 1 hour. James's team won because of him. When the game was over, Billy patted James on the back one time. "Not bad," Billy said. It was not much, but it was something. Tommy was angry. He did not like to lose. He picked up his ball and bat. "Game's over," he said. "Everyone go home." James nodded. "Thanks for letting me play," he said. He started to walk away. "Wait," Billy called. "Same time tomorrow." Before James could answer, Tommy stepped between them. "No way," he said. "My dad would kill me if he knew we played with him." He pointed at James without looking at him. "Your dad isn't the boss of the park," Billy said. His voice was quiet but strong. People in town saw this as they walked by. They stopped to watch. Some parents called their children to come home right away. Others just stood and stared. James felt all the eyes on him. He wished he could disappear. He backed away from the group. "It's okay," he said. "I should go home." Just then, a man walked up. It was Mr. Baker, Tommy's father. His face was red with anger. "What's going on here?" he asked in a loud voice. "Tommy, get away from that boy." "We were just playing baseball, Dad," Tommy said. "With him." Mr. Baker looked at James like he was looking at dirt. "I told you to stay away from those people." Mr. Wilson stood up again. "Jack Baker," he said, "these are just boys playing a game. No harm in that." Mr. Baker turned to Mr. Wilson. "You stay out of this, old man. I decide who my son plays with." More people gathered around. Some nodded with Mr. Baker. Others looked uncomfortable. James felt sick to his stomach. He had seen this before in his old town. He knew what could happen next. He turned to leave. "That's right," Mr. Baker said. "Go back where you came from." Mr. Wilson stepped forward. "That's enough, Jack." Mr. Baker laughed. "Or what? You going to fight me, Wilson? Over some kid who doesn't belong here?" James started walking faster. Tears filled his eyes, but he would not let them fall. "Not here. Not now." Behind him, he heard a voice. "Wait." James turned around. It was Billy. He was running toward James. "Same time tomorrow," Billy said again. "I want you on my team." Mr. Baker called for his son. Tommy looked torn between his father and his friend Billy. The town of Pinewood held its breath. The sun was setting behind the trees. This was a moment that would change everything. Tommy looked at his father. Then he looked at Billy. Then he looked at James. He had to make a choice. "Come on, son," Mr. Baker said. "We're going home now." Tommy kicked the dirt with his shoe. "Yes, sir," he said, but he did not move. Billy stood next to James now. "I meant what I said," Billy told James. "You're good at baseball. We should play again tomorrow." Mr. Baker's face got even more red. "Billy Johnson, your father will hear about this." Billy looked scared, but he stayed where he was. "My dad says we should be kind to new people in town." Mr. Wilson walked over and stood between the boys and Mr. Baker. "These boys just want to play baseball, Jack. Let them be boys." More people came to the park. Some were parents looking for their children. Others just wanted to see what was happening. Someone had run to the diner and told everyone there was trouble at the park. Mrs. Morton was one of the people who came. She saw her son James standing with an old man and another boy. She saw the angry faces in the crowd. Her heart beat fast with fear. "James," she called. "Time to come home." James saw his mother. He felt both happy and sad to see her. Happy because he wanted to leave this bad place. Sad because he knew she was worried about him. "Yes, Mama," he said. He turned to Billy. "Thank you for being nice to me." As James walked to his mother, Billy called after him. 4 o'clock tomorrow. I'll be here." Mr. Baker pointed his finger at Billy. "You stay away from that boy. All of you kids stay away from him." Some parents nodded. Others looked down at the ground. No one spoke against Mr. Baker. No one except Mr. Wilson. "Shame on you, Jack Baker," he said. "Shame on all of you who think like him." Mrs. Morton took James's hand. "Let's go home," she said quietly. As they walked away, James heard Mr. Wilson and Mr. Baker still arguing. He heard other people joining in. Some voices were loud and angry. Some were soft and scared. "Why do they hate us, Mama?" James asked when they were far enough away. Mrs. Morton squeezed his hand. "They don't know us, James. They're afraid of what they don't know." "But I just wanted to play baseball," James said. "I know, baby. I know." When they got home, Mr. Morton was waiting on the front steps. He knew something was wrong as soon as he saw their faces. "What happened?" he asked. Mrs. Morton shook her head. "Not now," she said, looking at James. James went to his room. He could hear his parents talking in low voices. He took out his baseball glove and held it close to his chest. Baseball was the one thing that made him happy. Now even that was ruined. Later that night, there was a knock at their door. Mr. Morton opened it slowly. 3 men stood there. Mr. Morton told James and his mother to go to the back room, but James watched through a crack in the door. "We don't want any trouble," one man said. James recognized him as the man from the park, Mr. Baker. "Then don't bring any," Mr. Morton said. His voice was calm but strong. "Your boy was causing problems today." Another man said, "My son did nothing wrong," Mr. Morton said. "He tried to play baseball with the other boys. That's all." "Listen," Mr. Baker said. "This is a good town, a quiet town. We want to keep it that way." "Are you telling us to leave?" Mr. Morton asked. The third man spoke up. "We're just saying there are other towns where your kind might fit in better." James felt sick again. He had heard those words before in other towns. He knew what they meant. Mr. Morton stood tall. "This is our home now. We're not going anywhere." The 3 men looked at each other. "You'll be sorry," Mr. Baker said. Then they left. That night, James couldn't sleep. He wondered if Billy would really be at the park tomorrow at 4 o'clock. He wondered if he should go. He wondered if his family would ever find a place where they could be happy. The next day at school was hard for James. It was his first day at Pinewood Elementary. His mother walked him to the front door. Some parents looked at them and whispered. Some children pointed. "Hold your head high," Mrs. Morton told James. "You belong here just like everyone else." James nodded. He put on a brave face, but inside he was scared. He walked into the school alone. The principal was waiting for him. Her name was Mrs. Green. She had a kind face with many wrinkles. "Welcome to Pinewood Elementary, James," she said. "I'll take you to your classroom." As they walked down the hall, children stared at James. Some moved away from him. Some whispered behind their hands. James tried not to look at them. Mrs. Green took him to a classroom at the end of the hall. "This is Miss Davis's 5th grade class," she said. "She's expecting you." James took a deep breath and went inside. 20 faces turned to look at him. The room got very quiet. Miss Davis was young with red hair. She smiled at James, but her smile seemed nervous. "Class, this is our new student, James Morton," she said. "James, you can take the empty seat in the back row." James walked to the back of the room. He felt everyone watching him. The empty seat was next to a girl with long brown hair. When James sat down, she moved her chair a little bit away from him. "We were just about to start our math lesson," Miss Davis said. She wrote some problems on the board. "Who can solve the first one?" Several hands went up. James knew the answer too, but he kept his hand down. He didn't want everyone looking at him again. At lunchtime, James sat alone. He opened his lunchbox and found a note from his mother. It said, "Be strong, be kind, be yourself." He looked around the cafeteria. Most tables were full of laughing children. Then he saw a boy sitting alone at a corner table. It was Billy from the park. James picked up his lunch and walked over. "Can I sit here?" he asked. Billy looked up with surprise. "Sure," he said. "I didn't know you would be at school today." "It's my first day," James said. They ate in silence for a while. "Are you still going to the park at 4?" Billy asked finally. James shrugged. "I don't know. My parents might not let me after what happened yesterday." "I'll be there," Billy said, "with or without Tommy and the others." James smiled a little. "Why are you being nice to me? No one else is." Billy thought for a moment. "My grandpa fought in the war. He said he fought next to men with all kinds of skin colors. He said they were all brave. He said it doesn't matter what someone looks like. It matters what they do." Billy paused. "Also, you hit that ball really far yesterday." James laughed. It was the first time he had laughed since coming to Pinewood. After lunch, things got worse. In the hallway, an older boy pushed James into a wall. "Watch where you're going," the boy said with a mean smile. In class, someone threw a paper ball at his head when Miss Davis wasn't looking. On the paper was an ugly drawing of a face with terrible words written under it. James crumpled the paper and put it in his desk. He thought about his father's words. "Don't let them see you cry. Don't let them see you angry. Just keep going." After school, James walked home alone. Some boys followed him, calling out mean things. He walked faster. When he got home, he ran inside and slammed the door. His mother looked up from her sewing. "How was school?" she asked. "Fine," James lied. He didn't want her to worry more than she already did. "A boy named Billy came by," she said. "He said to tell you he's going to the park at 4 if you want to play baseball." James was surprised. "Did Dad say I can go?" Mrs. Morton nodded. "Mr. Wilson is going to be there too. Your father thinks it will be okay if Mr. Wilson is watching out for you." At 4 o'clock, James walked to the park with his baseball glove. His stomach felt tight with worry. What if Billy wasn't there? What if Mr. Baker and the other men came back? What if it was all a trick? When he got to the park, it looked empty. James felt a wave of sadness. Then he heard someone call his name. "James, over here." Billy was standing near the baseball field. He was not alone. 2 other boys were with him. And sitting on his bench was Mr. Wilson, watching everything with wise old eyes. James walked up to them, not smiling this time. He was still afraid this might be a trick. "This is Sam and Mike," Billy said, pointing to the other boys. "They want to play too." Sam and Mike nodded at James. They didn't smile, but they didn't look mean either. "4 isn't enough for a real game," Billy said, "but we can practice batting and catching." For the next hour, the 4 boys played baseball. Slowly, James began to relax. He even smiled a few times. The other boys saw how good he was and asked him to show them how to hit the ball so far. As the sun began to set, Mr. Wilson called to the boys. "Time to head home, boys. It'll be dark soon." As they gathered their things, Mike asked, "Same time tomorrow?" James looked at Billy. Billy nodded. "Same time tomorrow," he said. For the next week, James met Billy, Sam, and Mike at the park every day at 4. Each day, 1 or 2 more boys joined them. By Friday, they had enough players for a small game. Mr. Wilson came every day and watched from his bench. At school, things were getting a little better too. James still sat with Billy at lunch. Now Sam and Mike sat with them too. Some kids still said mean things to James, but not as many as before. But not everything was getting better. Mr. Baker and some other men in town were angry. They didn't like seeing white boys playing with a black boy. They didn't like seeing their children sitting with James at lunch. On Saturday morning, James went to the store with his mother. They needed food for the week. When they walked into Mr. Green's grocery, people stopped talking and stared at them. "Good morning," Mrs. Morton said with a smile. No one smiled back. They walked through the store, putting items in their basket. James could hear people whispering. He tried not to listen, but he heard some words that made him feel bad. At the counter, Mr. Green looked nervous. "Will that be all?" he asked without looking at them. "Yes, thank you," Mrs. Morton said. She took out her money. Mr. Green rang up their items very slowly. "That will be $15, he said. Mrs. Morton frowned. "That seems high for these few things," she said. Mr. Green finally looked at her. "Prices went up this week," he said. His eyes were cold. James knew this wasn't true. He had seen the price signs in the store, but his mother just paid the money without saying anything else. As they left the store, James heard Mr. Green say to another customer, "Some people just don't know their place." That night at dinner, Mr. Morton had news. "I lost my job today," he said quietly. Mrs. Morton put down her fork. "What? Why?" Mr. Morton looked tired. "Mr. Smith said they had to let some people go. I was the newest hire, so I was the first to go." He paused, but I heard him talking to another manager. He said he was getting pressure from important people in town. James knew what this meant. Mr. Baker and his friends were trying to force his family to leave Pinewood. "What will we do?" Mrs. Morton asked. "I'll find another job," Mr. Morton said. "Maybe in the next town over. We'll be okay." But he didn't sound like he believed it. James pushed his food around on his plate. He felt like everything was his fault. If he hadn't tried to play with those boys at the park, if he had just stayed home and been invisible, maybe his father would still have his job. The next day was Sunday. The Mortons didn't go to church. They knew they wouldn't be welcome at the white church in town. Instead, they sat in their small living room. Mr. Morton read the Bible to them. There was a knock at the door. Mr. Morton opened it carefully. Outside stood Mr. Wilson, leaning on his walking stick. "Good morning," Mr. Wilson said. "Hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," Mr. Morton said. "Please come in." Mr. Wilson sat down in their living room. He looked at James and smiled. "You're quite the baseball player, young man," he said. James smiled a little. "Thank you, sir." Mr. Wilson turned to Mr. Morton. "I heard about your job," he said. "That's not right." Mr. Morton shrugged. "It's not the first time something like this has happened to us." "I came to tell you something," Mr. Wilson said. "I own a small repair shop in town. I fix radios, clocks, that sort of thing. My hands aren't as steady as they used to be. I could use some help." He looked at Mr. Morton. "The pay isn't much, but it's honest work." Mr. Morton looked surprised. "You're offering me a job?" Mr. Wilson nodded. "If you want it." "Why would you help us?" Mrs. Morton asked. "You don't even know us." "I know enough," Mr. Wilson said. "I know your boy is kind and honest. I know this town is treating you badly. And I know it's not right." He looked down at his hands. "I fought in the war to stop people who hated others for no good reason. I'm not going to sit by and watch the same thing happen in my own town." There was another knock at the door. This time, it was louder, angry. When Mr. Morton opened it, Mr. Baker and 5 other men stood there. They looked surprised to see Mr. Wilson in the house. "What are you doing here, Wilson?" Mr. Baker asked. "Visiting my friends," Mr. Wilson said calmly. "What are you doing here, Jack?" Mr. Baker ignored him. He looked at Mr. Morton. "We want to talk to you," he said. "Alone. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of Mr. Wilson," Mr. Morton said. Mr. Baker's face got red. "Fine. We'll make this simple. We don't want your kind in our town. You have 1 week to leave. If you're still here after that, things will get bad for you." "Are you threatening me?" Mr. Morton asked. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. "Take it how you want," Mr. Baker said. 1 week. Then he and the other men left. Mr. Wilson stood up. "Don't you worry," he said to the Mortons. "Not everyone in this town thinks like Jack Baker." After Mr. Wilson left, the Mortons sat in silence. Finally, James spoke. "Are we going to leave?" His parents looked at each other. "We don't know yet," Mrs. Morton said. I don't want to go, James said. I have friends now. Billy and Sam and Mike. Sometimes we have to do hard things to stay safe, Mr. Morton said. That night, James couldn't sleep again. He wondered what would happen if they stayed. He wondered what would happen if they left. He wondered if he would ever find a place where people looked at him and saw just a boy who loved baseball, not a black boy who didn't belong. On Monday morning, James went to school like normal, but things were not normal. As soon as he walked in, he could feel that something was different. The other children looked at him with strange faces. Some seemed afraid. Some seemed angry. Some seemed sad. In class, Miss Davis seemed nervous. She kept looking at the door like she expected someone to come in. When the lunch bell rang, she stopped James before he could leave. James, she said quietly, I heard about what happened at your house yesterday. Are you okay? James was surprised. Yes, ma'am, he said. Miss Davis looked like she wanted to say more, but she just nodded and let him go. In the hallway, James saw Billy. They walked to lunch together. Everyone's talking about what happened, Billy said. My dad says Mr. Baker is trying to get everyone to sign a paper saying they want your family to leave town. James felt sick. Are people signing it? Billy looked down. Some are. My dad said no. He said Mr. Baker is a bully who thinks he owns this town. At their lunch table, Sam and Mike were waiting. Two other boys, Ryan and Peter, sat with them too. James was surprised. Ryan and Peter had never been nice to him before. Is it true? Ryan asked as soon as James sat down. Is it true they told your family to leave town? James nodded slowly. That's not fair, Peter said. You didn't do anything wrong. James didn't know what to say. He just ate his lunch and listened as the boys talked. They were angry about what was happening. They didn't think it was right. After school, James went to the park. More boys were there than ever before. Even Tommy was there, standing off to the side. He didn't look at James, but he didn't say anything mean either. Mr. Wilson came too. He watched as the boys played. More and more adults came to watch. Some looked angry. Some looked worried. But they all stayed and watched. When the game was over, Mr. Wilson called all the boys together. You boys are doing a good thing here, he said. You're showing the grown-ups how to be decent people. He looked at each boy, even Tommy. Remember this feeling. Remember what it's like to play together without hate in your hearts. That night, someone threw a rock through the Mortons' living room window. The rock had a note tied to it. The note said, G.T.O.T. Mr. Morton called the police. When the police officer came, he didn't seem to care much. Boys being boys, he said with a shrug. Nothing we can do about it. After the police left, Mr. Morton sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands. Maybe we should go, he said, before something worse happens. If we go, they win, Mrs. Morton said. Is that what we want to teach James? To run away when things get hard? I want to teach him to stay alive, Mr. Morton said. James listened from the hallway. He felt tears in his eyes. He went to his room and got into bed, but he couldn't sleep. In the middle of the night, he heard a car outside. Then he smelled smoke. He ran to his parents' room. Mom, Dad, wake up. Mr. Morton jumped out of bed and looked out the window. Oh no, he said. In their front yard, a wooden cross was on fire. The flames lit up the night. Behind the cross, a car drove away fast. Mr. Morton ran outside with a bucket of water. He put out the fire, but the burnt cross still stood in their yard. A terrible message of hate. The next morning, Mrs. Morton walked James to school. They tried to leave early, but people were waiting for them. Men and women stood on both sides of the street. They shouted mean things. They held signs that said, "Go home," and worse words that James had never seen before. James held his mother's hand tight. She walked with her head high, but he could feel her shaking. At the school, Mrs. Green was waiting. "Mrs. Morton," she said, "perhaps it would be better if James stayed home today." Mrs. Morton looked shocked. "He has a right to be here," she said. "Yes, of course," Mrs. Green said. She looked at the angry people on the street. "But we can't guarantee his safety right now." "So you're going to let them win?" Mrs. Morton asked. Her voice was angry now. "You're going to teach these children that hate is stronger than what's right?" Mrs. Green didn't answer. She just looked sad and tired. "James is staying," Mrs. Morton said. "He will be in class today like any other day." She bent down and hugged James. "Be brave," she whispered. "I'll be back to get you after school." James watched his mother walk back through the crowd. Someone threw something at her, but it missed. She didn't even look back. Inside the school, everything was quiet. Too quiet. In the classroom, half the seats were empty. Miss Davis looked like she had been crying. "Where is everyone?" James asked Billy when he sat down. "Their parents kept them home," Billy said. "They're afraid something bad might happen today." As the day went on, James began to understand. The adults in town were choosing sides. Some thought the Mortons should leave. Others thought they should be allowed to stay. The town was breaking in two over one small family. At lunch, Billy, Sam, Mike, Ryan, and Peter all sat with James. So did 3 girls from their class. More children joined their table. Not everyone in the school was against him. By the end of the day, James felt a little better. Maybe things would be okay. Maybe the angry people would give up. But when the final bell rang, Miss Davis stopped everyone from leaving. "There are a lot of people outside," she said. "Your parents are coming in to get you. Please wait at your desks." One by one, parents came and took their children. Soon only James was left. He waited and waited for his mother, but she didn't come. Miss Davis stayed with James as they waited. The school got quieter and quieter as everyone left. James could hear people outside. Many voices, some angry, some loud. "Where is my mom?" James asked. His voice shook a little. Miss Davis bit her lip. "I'm sure she's on her way," she said, but she looked worried. Then they heard footsteps in the hall. Mrs. Green came in with Mr. Wilson. "James," Mr. Wilson said, "your mother asked me to come get you. There's a situation outside." "What kind of situation?" James asked. He was scared now. "A crowd," Mr. Wilson said. "It's not safe for your mother to come to the school right now." Miss Davis put her hand on James's shoulder. "I'll bring the car around to the back door," she said. "We can take him home." But Mrs. Green shook her head. "The crowd is all around the school," she said. "They'll see you leave." "Then what do we do?" Miss Davis asked. She sounded angry. "We can't keep him here all night." Mr. Wilson looked out the window. "The crowd is getting bigger," he said, "and angrier." Just then, there was another sound. A siren. Then another. Police cars were coming. James went to the window and looked out. He saw police officers talking to the people in the crowd. Some people were yelling. Some were waving their signs. Then James saw his mother. She was talking to a police officer. She looked scared. "She came for me," James said. "My mom came for me." Miss Davis looked out the window too. "Oh no," she said. She sounded even more worried now. The police officer talking to Mrs. Morton was shaking his head. He wouldn't let her come to the school. The people in the crowd were yelling at her now. Someone pushed her. James felt hot tears in his eyes. "They're being mean to my mom," he said. Mr. Wilson put his hand on James's shoulder. "Don't look, son," he said. "The police will handle it." But the police didn't seem to be helping much. They were just standing there while people yelled and pushed. Then something amazing happened. Billy's dad, Mr. Johnson, stepped out of the crowd. He went and stood beside Mrs. Morton. Then Sam's mother did the same. Then Mike's parents. One by one, more people came and stood with Mrs. Morton. They made a line between her and the angry crowd. "Look at that," Miss Davis said. Her voice was full of wonder. The angry people kept yelling, but they backed up a little. The police officer who had been talking to Mrs. Morton now listened to her. He nodded. Then he and two other officers came toward the school. "They're coming to get you," Mr. Wilson told James. "It's going to be okay." The police officers came into the classroom. "We're here to escort the boy home," one said. He didn't look at James when he spoke. "I'll come too," Mr. Wilson said. "That's not necessary," the police officer said. "I promised his mother," Mr. Wilson said. His voice was firm. The police officer sighed. "Fine. Let's go." They walked down the hall and out the front door of the school. The crowd was bigger now. People on both sides. The angry ones yelled when they saw James. The ones who stood with his mother moved closer, making a path for him. James walked with his head down. He could hear terrible words. He could feel the hate around him. But he could also feel people walking beside him, protecting him. When he got to his mother, she hugged him tight. "I'm here," she said. "I'm right here." Together, with the police and the friendly neighbors, they walked home. The angry crowd followed, but kept their distance. At home, Mr. Morton was waiting on the porch. He looked worried and relieved at the same time. He hugged James and his wife. "Thank God you're safe," he said. Mr. Wilson and the others who had helped them came inside. The police stayed outside to watch the angry crowd, which was still there, still yelling. "What's happening to our town?" Mrs. Johnson, Billy's mother, asked. She looked sad and tired. "This isn't new," Mr. Morton said. "This hate has always been here. It was just hiding." Mr. Wilson nodded. "Sometimes it takes a spark to show what's really in people's hearts," he said. James was that spark. James felt bad. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't cause anything," Mrs. Morton said firmly. "The trouble was already there, waiting to happen." Mr. Johnson looked out the window at the angry crowd. "What are we going to do about this?" he asked. "They're not going to just go away. We can't let them win," Mr. Wilson said. "If they force the Mortons out, this town will never recover. The shame will hang over us forever." "But how do we stop them?" Mrs. Johnson asked. "There are so many of them." "There are more of us," Mr. Wilson said. "People who believe in doing what's right. We just need to stand together." They talked for hours, making plans. More neighbors came. The house was full of people who wanted to help. For the first time since coming to Pinewood, James felt like maybe they could belong here after all. That night, many of their new friends stayed at the house. They were afraid the angry crowd might try to hurt the Mortons. James slept on the floor in his parents' room. The last thing he saw before falling asleep was his father sitting by the window, watching. In the morning, the crowd was gone. But everyone knew they would be back. This wasn't over yet. Mr. Morton went to work at Mr. Wilson's repair shop. Friends walked with him to make sure he was safe. Mrs. Morton stayed home with James. They thought it was too dangerous for him to go to school. But around noon, there was a knock at the door. When Mrs. Morton opened it, Miss Davis was standing there with Billy, Sam, Mike, and several other children from James' class. "We brought James his schoolwork," Miss Davis said, "and his friends." The children came inside. They had made cards for James. They told him they missed him at school. For a little while, James forgot about the angry people and the danger. He was just a boy with friends. As the sun began to set, they heard cars coming down the street. Many cars. The angry crowd was coming back, and this time they were bringing more people with them. Mrs. Morton looked out the window. "They're coming," she said, her voice tight with fear. "A lot of them." Miss Davis gathered the children. "We should go," she said. But when they opened the front door, they saw cars blocking the street. The angry crowd had surrounded the house. "We can't leave now," Mr. Johnson said. He had come when he heard the cars. "It's not safe." They closed the door and locked it. More friends arrived, coming through the back door. Soon the small house was full of people who wanted to protect the Mortons. Outside, the crowd grew. They had signs and torches. Some had megaphones. They started chanting, "Get out! Get out!" James sat in his room with Billy and the other children. They tried to play games, but they could hear the angry voices outside. They were scared. "Why do they hate us so much?" James asked Billy. "We didn't do anything to them." Billy shook his head. "My dad says some people are afraid of anyone who's different," he said. "They're afraid you'll change things." "I just want to play baseball," James said. "That's all I ever wanted." In the living room, the adults were talking in low voices. They were trying to figure out what to do. The police had come, but there were only 3 officers. They couldn't control the large crowd. "We need to get word to the county sheriff," Mr. Wilson said. "This is getting out of hand." But the phones weren't working. Someone had cut the lines. "I'll go," said a young man named David. He was Sam's older brother. "I can go through the woods behind the house. They won't see me." Mr. Morton nodded. "Be careful," he said. As night fell, the crowd outside got louder and more angry. Someone threw a bottle at the house. It broke against the wall. Mr. Morton gathered everyone in the middle of the house, away from the windows. "Stay down," he said. "Stay together." James was so scared he could hardly breathe. His mother held him close. "It's going to be okay," she whispered, but her voice shook. Then they heard a new sound. Breaking glass. Someone had broken a window. "They're trying to get in," Mrs. Johnson said. The men in the house stood up. They made a line between the broken window and the women and children. "We won't let them hurt you," Mr. Johnson told James, but his face was white with fear. Outside, they could hear Mr. Baker's voice through a megaphone. "Send out the boy and his parents," he called. "No one else needs to get hurt." "Never," Mr. Morton said. "We'll never give in to hate." More glass broke. Then they heard a crash. The front door was breaking. James buried his face in his mother's shoulder. "I'm sorry," he cried. "I'm so sorry." "This is not your fault," she said fiercely. "Never think that." 1 month later, life in Pinewood was different in many ways. The Morton family still lived in the same house. Mr. Morton still worked at Mr. Wilson's repair shop. James still went to school and played baseball at the park. But the town had changed. People looked at each other differently now. They knew who had stood with the angry crowd that night. They knew who had stood with the Mortons. The town was split down the middle. Some businesses lost customers. People who had been friends for years stopped talking to each other. At church on Sundays, some seats were empty. Those people drove to churches in other towns now. James still played baseball with his friends every day after school. More kids joined them. Even Tony came sometimes, though he never said much to James. His father, Mr. Baker, had lost his job at the store. People didn't want to buy things from a man who led a mob. One day at the park, a photographer from a big newspaper came to take pictures of the boys playing baseball together. "This is a good story," the man said. "Black and white kids playing together in a small southern town. People need to see this." The boys just wanted to play baseball. They didn't think they were doing anything special. But to the rest of the country they were. Letters came to the Mortons' house every day. Some from people who said they were proud of them for staying. Some from other black families who had gone through similar things. Some from white people who said they were sorry for what had happened. In school, Miss Davis started teaching the class about civil rights. She talked about brave people who stood up against unfair laws. She talked about how hard it was to be the first one to do something different. She looked at James when she said this, and he felt proud. At the end of the school year, something amazing happened. The boys' baseball team had a real game against a team from another town. James was the best player, so the coach put him on the team. It was the first time a black boy had played on Pinewood's team. When they went to the other town to play, some people there were angry. They said James shouldn't be allowed to play. But his teammates stood up for him. Even Tommy said, He's on our team. That's all that matters. The Pinewood team won that game. James hit 2 home runs. When they came back to town, people were waiting to cheer for them. Not everyone, but enough. That summer, more black families moved to Pinewood. They had heard about the Mortons and how they had stayed even when things were hard. They had heard about the white families who stood with them. They thought maybe Pinewood could be a place where they could live too. Mr. Baker and some others left town. They said Pinewood wasn't the same anymore. And they were right. It wasn't. 50 years later, an old man walked slowly through Pinewood Park. His hair was gray now, but his smile was the same. James Morton had come back to visit the town where he grew up. The town had changed a lot. The old buildings on Main Street were fixed up nice now. The park had new equipment for children to play on. And there, on the baseball field, children of all colors played together like it was nothing special. A young reporter was waiting for him. "Mr. Morton," she said, "thank you for meeting me. I'm writing a story about what happened here 50 years ago." James sat down on a bench. It was the same bench where Mr. Wilson used to sit. "What do you want to know?" he asked. "The town named this park after you last year," the reporter said. "Morton Park. How does that make you feel?" James looked at the children playing. "It's nice," he said. "But the park should really be named after all the people who stood up that night, the ones who chose to do what was right even when it was hard." "What happened to those people?" the reporter asked. "Some are still here," James said. "Billy Johnson is the mayor now. Sam Richards owns the grocery store. Mike Peters is the high school principal. And the others, the ones who tried to make your family leave." James shook his head. "Some changed. Some never did." He was quiet for a moment. But that night changed everyone, one way or another. It forced people to choose what kind of town they wanted to live in, what kind of people they wanted to be. "Do you think about that night a lot?" the reporter asked. "Not the night itself," James said. "I think about the day before. The day I walked up to those boys playing baseball. I was smiling because I thought they would just see a boy who wanted to play. I didn't know that moment would change the town forever." The reporter looked at her notes. "The headline from back then," she said. The black boy walked up smiling. "What they did next still haunts this American town." She looked up at James. "Does it still haunt the town?" James watched the children playing. The little black boy hit the ball and ran to first base. His teammates cheered for him. No one thought it was strange or special. It was just baseball. "Not in the way they meant back then," James said. "What haunts this town is the memory of choosing sides, of neighbors turning against neighbors, of hate winning for a little while." He smiled. "But also the memory of people standing together for what was right. That haunts them too, in a good way." As the sun set over Pinewood, James walked slowly around the park. He stopped at a small stone marker near the baseball field. It had Mr. Wilson's name on it, the old man who sat on a bench and made sure one small boy could play baseball with the other children. He was the first one to stand up, James told the reporter. "Sometimes that's all it takes. One person willing to do the right thing. Then others will follow." The reporter wrote that down. She knew it was the perfect ending for her story. The story of how a small American town faced its worst moment, and how that moment still echoed through the years. How the simple act of a black boy walking up with a smile had forced an entire town to decide what kind of people they truly were, and how that decision still haunted them all these years later.